see how much pressure are you really putting on your art. So today I'm going to be painting Rihanna while also having a very transparent conversation about money, how money affects artists, and just how our overall relationship with money be affecting our pockets. So to start off, this entire video was inspired by a poem that I wrote to one of Rihanna's songs, I Have My Money. And whenever I write a poem to a song or another creative medium like movies, TV shows, I like to call them poet covers, which is basically a cover version of a song that I translated into a poem. And I do have my poet cover to Rihanna's song up on my Instagram if y'all want to watch it. I will be having prints and my paintings for sale soon on my website if you guys would like to support me. And without further ado, let's start off with the first few lines of the poem. Abundance on decline, responsibility on the rise. I refuse to be okay with having debt. Yet debt threatens to send me into a storm of stress if I don't take it by the hand. I wrote this poem during one of my last years in undergrad, and at the time I was debating on whether or not I should take out a loan. And as someone who didn't really grow up with a lot of money, my perception towards money was always scarce. And my only lessons on financial literacy were don't waste your money, save your money, and don't take out loans. Keep in mind, most of my schooling was paid for through scholarships and grants, but towards the end of my academic year, my university had brought this apartment I was staying in, turned it into a dorm, and then instead of paying my monthly rent, I now had to pay the price of room and board, which is significantly more expensive. And this meant that I was getting charged room and board, a meal plan because they made that a requirement, and the food wasn't even that good, y'all. And they had their own insurance fees. I was not balling in scholarships and grants like that. And me and my GPA was not that locked in because I was trying to juggle my creative endeavors on top of school at the time. And from here on out, even after graduation, my living situation became an absolute nightmare. This was the reality check that kind of got me to be like, I need to change everything I need to know about money. And I was using Rihanna as a muse for this poem because this song was a shot towards her accountant who apparently had her fucked up. And I just thought that was crazy because even when you're making millions of dollars, you still gonna run into financial burdens. People fucking with your money. And I think that for me, I just got to a point where I no longer wanted to put so much pressure on my work to try and sustain me. For the longest time, I was putting my financial stability and my craft into the exact same category. And that was a recipe for disaster because whenever I had a day where I couldn't book a show or I couldn't find anyone else to buy my artwork, I had questioned whether or not if this is something that I want to do. And after some deep reflection, I had realized that I can't stop. I'm never going to stop. I can't help it. If you're a fellow creative, you get where I'm coming from. You can't stop. And initially, my art has always been therapeutic for me, and my perception of money was never anything close to therapeutic. So it doesn't make sense for me to demand that my art help me live. And don't get me wrong, if it happens, it happens. And if my craft makes space for me, that's okay. But I will not demand that the value of my art be based on its ability to make money, because it is far more fulfilling to know that it's making an impact towards somebody. It's making an impact in the world. And once I had got to this place in my mind, my perception of money was no longer scarce, and I started to change my narrative around it. And ever since then, I have been met with some of the most abundant opportunities. And I say that to say that as artists, it's much more freeing when we don't attach every single creation that we have to a price. Now, I'm not saying don't know your worth and not charge prices, especially if you spend 7 hours working on something, but to recognize and even just do a little evaluation and see how much pressure are you really putting on your art. Ask yourself, in what way is this hurting you that you might not even be aware of? And it doesn't even have to be money, but is it your self-worth? Is it external validation? Is it making this the only thing in your life that has meaning, there's other things in our life that make it meaningful. And are we putting too much pressure on our art to make our lives worth living? And this is essentially the depth that I'm trying to reach in the poem, in this painting, and how ultimately the biggest investment we'll make is on ourselves, and that includes every aspect of our lives. What memories are we investing in? What quality time are we investing in? What foods that we're putting into our bodies? Money is more than just paper. It's a currency. It's an energy. It is something that can be exchanged for another thing. What I truly believe now that I didn't know in undergrad is that the less restrictions we put on our perception of money and how it decides to show up in our lives, the more opportunities for money we'll eventually start to see.